is what you're made of. You are perfect and pure, even if you're not sure. It's what you're made of. L-O-V-E, love.
Today's theme is hope. Fill yourself with hope. And one of the most hopeful things going on in the world today is a walk that a group of Tibetan Buddhist monks from Texas are taking, walking from Texas to Washington, D.C. for peace. And it's a wonderful, constructive movement for peace that can inspire us all, and we have a video about that.
From Fort Worth to Washington, D.C., a 120-day, 300-mile journey of peace. Buddhist monks walking across America with their loyal dog Aloka by their side, spreading loving kindness, compassion, and hope for the whole world. Step by step beneath the sky, we walk with hope, you and I. Let the anger fade away, let compassion lead our way. Every heart can learn to heal, every wound can slowly seal. In this world of joy and grief, we rise again and walk for peace. Walk for peace, walk for light, walk through day and walk through night. Hand in hand the world will see, peace begins with you and me. Walk for truth, walk for love, guided by the stars above. Let all hatred finally cease, come with me, let's walk for peace. Across the land from sea to sea, a message carried peacefully. A 120-day walk so wide, 2,300 miles they stride. Buddhist monks with hearts so pure, Aloka walking strong and sure. Step by step their prayers increase, calling all to walk for peace. Walk for peace, walk for light, walk through day and walk through night. Hand in hand the world will see, peace begins with you and me. Walk for truth, walk for love, guided by the stars above. Let all hatred finally cease, come with me, let's walk for peace. May all beings live in freedom, may all suffering gently cease. May our footsteps write the story of a world that walks in peace. Through the valleys, over mountains, let our gentle courage rise. Peace is born in every moment when compassion fills our eyes. Walk for peace, walk for light, walk with courage shining bright. Every breath a prayer release, for a world that walks in peace. Walk for hope, walk for love, blessed by wisdom from above. Let all sorrow find release, come with me, let's walk for peace. 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 Come with me, let let's walk for peace.
Good morning. Wasn't that a beautiful video? It gives us all hope, and hope is what we need in these troubled times. We are meeting indeed in troubled times. There's war in Ukraine, in Gaza, and Sudan, and Yemen, and Congo, in Iran, and Myanmar. There are threats of war in Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, and even, for God's sake, in Greenland. Here at home, people are in the streets of Minneapolis, Chicago, Portland, and Los Angeles. It can seem hopeless, but what we need to combat that is a sense of hope. Hope that things can get better. Hope that calmer minds will prevail. Hope that peace will prevail. Desmond Tutu said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness." And Mignon McLaughlin said, "Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have is not permanent." We must retain hope. We can hope that nonviolence and spirituality will prevail, like the spirit of those Buddhist monks, and that the example of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. will prevail. We celebrate Dr. King's birthday tomorrow, and he was a great proponent of hope. He said, "Violence is immoral because it thrives on hatred rather than love. Violence ends up defeating itself. It creates bitterness in the survivors and brutality in the destroyers." He also said, "What affects one directly affects all indirectly." Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And he said, "Hate is too great a burden to bear. I've decided to love." Now, I am a Buddhist, and I'm a student of the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was a friend of Martin Luther King. The two of them embodied hope. Although they knew each other only for a few years, their relationship had a profound impact on each other and the world. The two men bonded over the shared insight that how we show up for each other matters, as is how we advance and advocate for social change. In 1967, King made one of his most famous speeches to 3,000 people at Riverside Church in New York. He spoke not only about race and economic equality, but he spoke out against the war in Vietnam. That was prompted by a letter from Thich Nhat Hanh. He called upon his own government. He called it the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. And he told his audience, "Silence is betrayal. For the sake of those suppressed in the American ghettos, for the sake of this government, for the sake of the hundreds of thousands trembling under one violence, I cannot be silent." It capped his 2-year journey to break the betrayal of his own silence, which began in a letter from the Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh. It was in 1965 that Thai wrote a letter to Dr. King in search of every man, comparing the long struggle for independence in Vietnam to the civil rights movement. He identified the enemies of man not as man himself, but intolerance, fanaticism, dictatorship, cupidity, hatred, and discrimination. And specifically in the case of the U.S. civil rights movement, intolerance, hatred, and discrimination. All were conditions that could only be cured by divine intervention, by the activism of faith and hope. Thai implied, Dr. King, you cannot be silent since you have already been in action, and you are in action because God is in action too. That letter awakened King's conscience, and he began to speak out against the war. Dr. King met with Thai, as we call him, in Chicago in 1966, again, when he talked about how the Vietnamese people cared little about ideology and did not support either side of the war, The first problem of the Vietnamese peasant was how to survive in the midst of the forces that threaten him, how to cling to life itself. King was so impressed that he nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. He wrote, quote, "I do not personally know of anyone more worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize than this gentle Buddhist monk. He's an apostle of peace and nonviolence." He was indeed an apostle of hope. They met again for the last time in Geneva, Switzerland. No, it wasn't the last time. They met there for the World Peace Conference. And then the final time was in Atlanta, Georgia in 1968, shortly before King's assassination. And this time, Thich Nhat Hanh knew that he would be assassinated if he tried to return to Vietnam. So he was living in exile in the south of France. The two men spoke about the common goal for peace and their longing to create the beloved community. They shared hope. They need to be filled with hope. Finally, on April 4th, 1968, King was shot dead by an assassin's bullet. The war in Vietnam persisted until 1975, when American troops finally headed home. The two men bonded over a vision of a beloved community. In 2014, 46 years after King's assassination, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, excuse me, "I was in New York when I heard the news of the assassination. I was devastated. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I made a deep vow to continue building what he called the beloved community, not only for myself, but for him also. I've done what I promised to Martin Luther King Jr., and I think I've always felt his support." I have a few quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "In order to rally people, governments need enemies. If they do not have a real enemy, they will invent one in order to mobilize us." Thank you very much, Bruce. We may think of peace as the absence of war, but if the great powers would reduce their weapons arsenals, we would have peace. But if we look deeply into the weapons, we will see our own minds, our own prejudices, fears, and ignorance. The roots of war are in the way we lead our daily lives, the way we develop our industries, build up our society, and consume goods. It's all about hope. If we're at war with our parents, our family, our society, our church, there's probably a war going on inside of us. So the most basic work for peace is to return to ourselves and create harmony among the elements within us, our feelings, our perceptions, and our mental states. That is why the practice of meditation, or looking deeply, is so important. Our meditation this morning emphasized that and was beautiful. Give yourself hope. Fill yourself with hope. One expression of hope is the golden rule that's common to all religions. I looked it up on Google, and it said the golden rule is the principle of treating each other as you wish to be treated. It doesn't have a single origin, but emerged independently across many ancient cultures, with early forms appearing in ancient Egypt around 1850 BC, in ancient China with Confucius, in ancient India with Hinduism and Jainism, in ancient Greece and Persia with Zoroastrianism. And then Jesus' positive phrasing in Matthew 7:12, "Do unto others as you would have others do unto you," popularized the term golden rule in the West, the concept of reciprocity and empathy. But that predates Christianity by millennia, appearing in both negative terms. The Jewish Bible says, "Do not do unto others what you would not want done to you." And there are positive forms across many different civilizations and traditions. In Buddhism, the Metta Sutra advises us to wish that all beings may be filled with loving kindness, may be peaceful and at ease, may be well and free from suffering, may be happy. All beings, including those that caused us pain and suffering. We wish happiness for all, including our enemies. Now, For those of you who are interested, we practice Buddhism here at the Unity Sanctuary every Sunday afternoon at 4:30 with the Cape Sangha. And then again on Wednesdays at 6:30 with Recovery Dharma, a Buddhist-based recovery program for people in recovery from all kinds of addiction. That includes process addictions like codependency, food issues, and internet addiction. At Recovery Dharma, we practice hope. Fill yourself with hope. The Bible says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And Emily Dickinson famously wrote, "Hope is the thing with feathers." I'd like to recite her poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abolish little bird, that could abash the little bird that kept us so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. I'd like to read a chapter from my book, Becoming Peacemaker, that talks about a time I found hope when I sought help from a Protestant minister. The morning of the day my brother died, his wife called me to say it was time to say goodbye to Brandy because he was fading fast. I told him I loved him and thanked him for being a wonderful big brother. My older brother, Brandy, died on September 11th, 2020, after struggling with Parkinson's for about 10 years. He was 75. My son, Brandon, was named for him, and we lost them both in 13 months. Later that morning, we had a meeting of the men's group at a state park. Ralph and Steve were very supportive. As I was driving home, I got news from my nephew that Brandy had died. When I got home, I lay on the couch and asked out loud, "What am I supposed to do? What do I do now? Where do I go from here?" Suddenly, I felt very uncomfortable all alone at home. I had to get out. I found myself walking down the road for no reason. I was walking west along Route 6A, but had no idea where I was going or why. I was quite puzzled, but couldn't stop walking. I think I was in shock. After 2 miles, I came to the nearby village of Barnstable, but I had no idea why I was there. After another mile west, I found myself 3 miles from home near the church garden of St. Mary's Episcopal Church. My phone rang, and it was my niece, Rachel. I talked to her and her brother, Daniel, while I was sitting in the beautiful garden. They filled me in on the last minutes of Brandy's life. He was taken to a hospice room at the hospital where he was given morphine to ease the pain. His wife and children were all there. Then I looked up at the church and realized I knew the rector there from interfaith events. We hadn't been introduced, but we had both spoken at a memorial service for George Floyd that summer. I found myself in the church and asked if Libby was there. She had just finished Zooming a 9/11 memorial service. She greeted me warmly and asked how she could help me. I told her about losing Brandon a year ago and then losing Brandy today. She asked if she could hug me. We were both wearing face masks because of the pandemic, and I had my first hug since March. She got out hand sanitizer for us and then took my hands in hers. She prayed with me with a prayer that combined Christianity, Buddhism, and the universal spirit that unites us all. She prayed that James would find the strength to be able to resume his work, quote, for the benefit of all sentient beings. That phrase, for the benefit of all sentient beings, is from the Bodhisattva vows I took on ordination. Somehow this Episcopal priest knew all about that, and then she asked God to send angels in heaven and on earth to comfort James. And after we said amen, I looked in her eyes and said that God had already sent me an angel. Apparently, when I was home alone asking what I should do, God sent me to St. Mary's Episcopal Church and its rector, the Reverend Dr. Libby Gibson Catania. I was truly blessed. Thank you.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at unityonCapeCod.org. This video was made possible in part through a grant from Unity Worldwide Ministries and the Templeton Foundation.